These are usually the questions that family members or loved ones want the client to work on. And usually the first one almost every time is honesty.
Okay, yeah, that's
and
huge.
In 12-step recovery, it's the first principle that goes with the first step. If you don't have honesty, you're probably not going to get past the first step, so you're probably not going to ever be able to complete the other 11. Mm-hmm. And so it's something I really try to work with the cases that I work with directly, or any of the clients I speak with. So I'd say the first thing that you want to have the loved one work on is their honesty.
Okay, so the family member says, Jerry, my loved one is there. Listen, what can I do to help with this person with honesty or get honest? That's really one of the top things that I want. What can I do to support them being honest?
Okay, so what I do is I'll have the client, we usually have them list out all the ways they've been dishonest with their family members. So it could be 20 to 25 reasons. And the client will go through that process with us. We'll walk through each one, and you ask them on each circumstance, what could they have done differently? And it's usually based on manipulation of trying to get money or something to keep the substance use going. And so for the family member, you always probably want to have someone else give you the information while they're here. So you want a clinician to be on the call with you. If the client calls you and tells you something, you might want to have it be done with the case manager or with myself, and let's see if it's really what's going on. Because they might give you some misdirection on what's going on with their treatment, because they might want to leave because the cravings and triggers are happening, because they're listening to an unreliable source of information. They're listening to themselves, and we're trying to get them not to do that and take a lot of direction, and they're not really used to that. So I would say if the client calls and gives you some information that might not sound correct, or you might just have some questions, please give myself or the case manager a call. Let's make sure that's what's really going on.
So it sounds like trust through verification.
That's right.
And so, okay, let me make this phone call and we'll see what we can do to help support that or what that looks like. And through that verification, we're able to, I forget who said this, but they said there's two truths in life. There's my truth and the truth.
That's right.
and so figuring that, okay, so that's huge. And as far as the honesty, it sounds like the first is awareness. As the person's here, they're becoming aware of some of these. Because I know for a lot of people, they'll even say, they're so unclear on if it was lie or truth that they've actually made the lie their own truth. And so becoming aware, and then by taking ownership of that, they're able to work through, and so you're able to do that list with them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So that's one. What other questions pop up?
Another one is forgiveness, and it's forgiveness on both sides.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, so what we usually do is we have the client write a forgiveness letter of self, and they find it very difficult at first. And so what I usually do, we'll get them with a senior resident that maybe wrote this letter, and they kind of help them, guide them through it. And then they read it to all their peers in group, and they get feedback from the peers, and it's very powerful. So I'd say the loved one also do this, because they might have said some things or done some things that they might not have to the client because of their addiction. And so you need to forgive yourself. You need to also start to heal, so both parties can heal, and the client doesn't feel like you don't want to be in their life anymore. So forgive yourself for any things that you might have said or done to the client out of fear or out of boundaries, and you need to forgive yourself, because a lot of times if a client relapses, loved ones blame themselves. And the addiction is so powerful, it's not their fault.
We hear that a ton of, what could I have done differently, or this is my fault. And so I like that. So the actual loved one to go through and to write a letter to yourself, actually forgiving yourself for anything that you may be feeling.
Yeah, and then either read it to myself or to the case manager, and maybe to the client also. It's very powerful.
Wow.
So that's another one. That's huge.
That's huge. Those are two big ones. We could stop there and actually hit a lot of stuff, but let's keep going. So what's another question that you see typically?
Another thing is finances and boundaries. So parents are really worried on how they can help financially, or loved ones. And clients are so used to putting their hand down and saying, just give me, or they get really upset. And so that's something that should be worked out at the very beginning. How are you going to help? I don't think there should ever be any finances actually given straight to the client in a cash amount. I think it should always go through either financial books through administration, or maybe materials bought. Addicts and alcoholics don't need very much to get the substance. They just need a little bit of cash or something to sell. And so I would go through the staff before buying anything from the client if the client calls you directly. And if they call you and they're not very polite to you, have them call with the clinical staff. And be very wary of sending money or anything that they could sell financially while they're in early recovery. It's just not very smart, because I myself would manipulate anyone to be able to get funds to be able to fund my addiction. And so that's something for the parent, is financials. Be very careful.
So that was a great way you hit on that. So financially is actually having that discussion up front of what I will and won't help with. Now, one thing that I see a lot of the time is, because it's this blurry line of I want to help financially, but at what point does it become enabling?
That's right. Well, there's only really three things an addict needs to have to stay participating in their addiction. One is some food once in a while. Two is maybe somewhere to sleep. Not really though, we can almost sleep anywhere. But the main one is, like I said, is any kind of funding so I can fund my addiction. So I'll just give a brief little, one of the things I would do to my mom is I would tell her, hey, and she knew I was using, and I'd be out there and she was really easy for me to manipulate. And I would say, hey Mom, I need some money for a hotel room. And she would be like, I'm not giving you any money. The family's told me not to help you that way. And I go, okay Mom, don't do that. Pay for the hotel over the phone with a credit card, and that's all I need. Can you just give me a room? And she would always break down. She didn't want me to be on the street. She'd break down and give me a room. So the addict, to me, what I would do is, now I got a hotel room. So now I would tell 5 or 6 other addicts, hey, I got a place for you to use. Give me $10 and you can come. Now I just got $50 to get more drugs. Don't do that. If the client says, I'm gonna leave if you don't give me a room or do something, we do not ever put someone on the curb. We don't ever tell someone, if they don't have somewhere to go, you gotta get out of here. We don't do that here. So don't believe what they say about that, and do not give them any way to manipulate the finances.
No, that's great. So once it starts going into that enabling is where we're either buying into that lie or giving money, as opposed to up front, and this is what I've seen a lot of families do, is the love I'm going to give to you unconditionally. I'm never going to withhold the love. That is yours. You're my child or my husband or wife or a loved one. I'm going to continue giving the love. But financially, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure you have food, but it's verifiable. So a lot of times they'll put money on the account. I will help pay for treatment if that was something that they went ahead and discussed up front. And if a person wants to leave, to say, well, you are more than welcome to leave, because this is the tough part, is allowing the individual's consequences to be their own. Well, I'm going to leave. You can make that choice. However, this is the only place I'm going to help you with actual treatment and a place to stay. So if you do leave, know that this place is still here for you. And that's one that I see a lot of times. We've even had some clients say, oh man, my old ways, you guys, this center jacked up my old ways of using. My parents will not co-sign this anymore. And literally that is when they actually start to begin to thrive.
They start to get well.
And so by setting the parameters of, absolutely, I'll help you, but here's what it looks like. I'll pay for this center or this treatment or this help. If you leave, I will respect that, but I'm not gonna pay for anywhere else. So that's a great one. So we already have 3 really good ones. Anything else come to mind?
Yeah, there's one that, so as an addict or an alcoholic, I was very, very good at manipulating whoever I could. So I would have a couple family members talking to each other, and I go to them and I can't manipulate them, or I can't get what I want out of them. So what my older brother did was, he got everybody on the same page that I could call. And everybody had to hold the same boundaries, otherwise it would fail.
So transparent communication, everyone coming together.
If one person breaks the boundary, the addict knows that there can be successful manipulation again, and it falls like just a house of cards. You've got to stick together, no matter how hard it is.
Yeah. So I love that. It's the whole safety in numbers by having open communication. And we have dealt with a lot of clients that have come from divorced homes. And so sometimes mom and dad aren't talking, and we're even able to facilitate that, to say, at least let's get on the same page for that loved one. And once there's that transparent communication, it's like so many times we've seen the person goes, crap, this old way of manipulation is dead. I can't do this anymore.
Exactly.
And then they heal. It's crazy. And so hopefully that kind of hits on the enabling over here and going back to more of solution based, so it kind of is intertwined. So we're up to 4 already. Anything else that you can think of as far as common questions?
Well, there's a big one. So a lot of people think that treatment is going to be a cure. So that's not the answer. So almost every client that I have in my first group, I ask them to stick their hand up if they think they're an alcoholic or an addict. Because it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, it matters what they think. And almost every single time, 99.9% of the people have their hand up. And I tell them, okay, so while you're here, you're held accountable to do groups, work a treatment plan, work with a therapist, go to meetings in the evenings. But what are you gonna do when you leave the treatment center? And they all look at me kind of sideways, and I go, you have got to do some kind of recovery program. Now, I do 12-step. I've talked to a therapist. I have a lot of people I talk to in the world. I don't push that on anyone. Now, I make suggestions. There's a lot of different recovery programs. And I tell them, no matter what you're gonna do, you've got to do one. I'd say do 5. Church, 12-step,
right.
CBT, DBT, whatever it is that can help you, do that. And they usually kind of look a little sideways at first, and they're like, really? I can do a lot of different things? Why not? Get as many tools as you can acquire. The family member, if they come back into your household, if you're helping them financially, you have a say. A lot of times, you don't get to tell me what I gotta do. You don't get to check on me. If you're still a part of their healing and their recovery, and you're helping them in any way, and you want to really be a part of their life, don't listen to that nonsense. Have them be accountable to what they're doing recovery based. Have them, hey, are you going to meetings? Show me what you're doing. Let them talk to your sponsor if you have one, or your mentor. Not telling you what you're working on with them, but just checking in and making sure that you're doing that. It's a huge deal. When I first got sober in 1999, one of the things, my brother paid for my treatment out of his pocket. I didn't have insurance. And he told me, the only way I'm doing this is when you get a sponsor. If I get to ask the guy, is he still working with you? Because he didn't trust me. And I had to go, God, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to give him that power. That's why I thought it was power. But no, it was just being accountable to my brother. So I said, okay, you can call this guy and just ask him, am I working for him? And it worked out. You know, I actually, being held accountable by family members made another tool that I had to be like, crap, I can't hide from anyone anymore. And I was able to get a significant amount of sobriety time from that. And the parents and the family members, if you just take a back seat to it, a lot of times I don't see success. Be a part of the addict and alcoholic's life.
Yeah, well, and a lot of the times there's fear of well, if I push, will they go back? And it keeps coming down. These two things just keep ringing on my head: is transparency and honesty.
That's right.
When I'm living a life of transparency and honesty, it's incredible because anybody can ask where I am, who I'm with, and it's kind of like, oh,
it doesn't matter.
Okay,
it doesn't matter. You're in so much joy. You'll just tell everybody, "This is what I'm doing. This is great."
And it's so freeing.
And when you're hiding, that usually means there's, you're already probably slipping back into the disease, and that's the part of it. It's so, this disease is trifold. It's not only is it physical and mental, but it's spiritual, and that's the part of it that it's so difficult to get. It was really easy for me to get sober. I couldn't stay sober. And so how did I do that? I had to follow some other direction.
Yeah.
That's why they're here. They're to follow a lot of others' directions, which they don't know how to do.
Yeah, when we're bankrupt spiritually, it's like all other bets are off. Even if things look good, it's having that spiritual connection.
Whatever that means to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I can't even keep count how many we've done.
We could probably keep going for hours.
All right. Well, I wanted to at least get some of that out there to help answer some questions. I like to say, get the hamster on the wheel and thinking. And as thoughts come to you or questions, please jot it down and send it to us, to your case manager or therapist or Jerry's the program supervisor. We have a team of people that are here to help answer questions, because you are a huge part of this. And this is how the healing really gets kicked into overdrive, is when everyone is part of it.
Exactly.
Awesome.
All
Thanks.
right, cool.